How does our shy and anxious energy attract narcissistic people? Let's talk about that today on Stepping Out of Stuck.
Welcome to Stepping Out of Stuck. I'm your host, Bonnie Brindle, the Anxiety Avenger,
And I'm Ted Simmons, the superhero of shyness,
and together we,
help you to get unstuck.
uh, I'm sighing for a moment here on this question, Ted.
Yeah.
It's a big one. It's something I have experience with, and I know you do too. How our shy and anxious energy attracts narcissistic people. Well, let's define narcissism first. And you and I both grew up with narcissistic parents. We each had a parent who was extremely narcissistic and manipulative, right?
Mhm.
So, narcissistic people have an incredible need to control others. They are very outward, showy, tend to beauty and status is very important to them. And they tend to home in on people who might be shy or anxious, who have seemingly less personal power. They can be arrogant. They lack empathy. It's hard for them to understand and recognize others. And a malignant narcissist will specifically target people to attack them. Sometimes they'll remember things that are said or things that happen, and later on they'll twist them in a way that they can attack with. And sometimes they're more overt. They'll see a person suffering and see a person struggling with something and will say or do something to make them feel like they're being kicked while they're down. It's not an attractive personality disorder.
Yeah.
Shy and anxious people are very much at risk for being attracted by and attracted to narcissistic people.
I I agree with that. What I'd say is that I always felt unsteady,
Ooh, yeah.
or out of balance in how I was being with somebody, who was narcissistic. My mom, I always felt like I didn't know anything. I always felt like I was, I couldn't say the right thing or I was off balance that way. The teacher, the same, my first grade teacher, the same thing. Um, and I've also run into various different layer in my life bosses
Mm.
and other things where you just don't know where you stand with them. You don't know if they're going to explode or if they're going to be happy or if they're going to be whatever. It just, they keep you guessing. And because they keep you guessing, then you don't know what to do with them.
Oh my gosh, that is so true. Narcissists will keep you guessing. They'll keep you unsteady and they'll keep you confused. And as you described with your mom, yeah, that makes sense. Mine too. My mom was really rather malignant narcissist. She was not really overt, like direct, but she would collect information and then wait for a time when it might be painful to throw it back in your face in a twist, and she did
Hmm.
that to me a lot as a kid and a young adult. My
Hmm.
dad was an alcoholic, which is narcissistic in itself, completely wrapped up in himself in the same way, but didn't have that mean edge. Like my mom had that edge where she would look for ways to twist people, make other people feel less around her. But that feeling of confusion, like you don't quite know where to land, you're always kinda like with an alcoholic, you don't know which one of those people is gonna come home in the night either. But with narcissists, it's a different kind of unsteady ground. Yeah, so when I think of it like this, Ted,
Yeah.
those of us who grew up with narcissistic parents, we attract our parents until we figure it out. Like when we start dating or, in friendships and in workplaces, people around us or above us, um, we can tend to be at risk around narcissistic people. And I wrote about this particular relationship. I'll tell you briefly about. I wrote about this in my book, Cracking the Crazy Maker's Code, about a relationship I had with a young man for, oh my word, 7 years when I look back on it. Ah, but it was like he was like my mom in a guy suit. He really was. He was a liar. He was a cheat. He would, try to twist people. He wasn't as smart as my mom, but he would try to twist people around a little bit, keep the confusion going, and always wanted to be in control and was arrogant and was, always worried about what he looked like. And as that relationship progressed, it would be on again, off again, la la la, because I was caught up in being highly anxious and didn't have the personal power at the time to just put an end to that. Now I do. I didn't then.
Mhm.
And that came to a head when we went on a vacation to Jamaica, and, like, he wanted to come home early, and I realized that this was because he was having an affair, and finally said, "No, you go. You go home. I'll stay in Jamaica by myself." Done. I was finally done. When I got back home, he wanted to reconnect. He wanted to control. He wanted to own me again, and when I was still saying no, finally, he lost it and smashed the windshield of my car.
Oh, geez.
It was the first time that I had seen him be really physically violent. He But he always had that edge, like, you're kinda looking out, just like with my parents,
Right.
right? He
Mhm.
never laid a hand on me, but boy, when I finally drew the line,
Mhm.
these people aren't used to people saying no.
Right.
Yeah, he broke the windshield of my car. That was a lesson.
Yeah.
That was when I stopped attracting my parents and said, "Yeah, not again."
Well, but we still run into them, like, in the
Yes.
workplace and other things like that. We are surrounded by not just unfortunately, being human, we don't have the opportunity to just surround ourselves by nice people. We always have some people that work their way in that are of the narcissistic variety.
True. But if we
Um,
learn those lessons, if we pay attention, then we learn and we see
yes,
when those people are coming at us again, right? Look
right.
for those characteristics. Is
Yeah.
the person self-involved? Do they have to be in control all the time?
Mhm.
Yeah, that kind of thing. And we really want to watch out for that because they are coming for the shy and anxious people.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, my own story with my mom, who was basically, she prided herself on her brain and her artistic ability and everything like that. So anything that I did that was any lick of any of those, she was always, quick to say, no, no, you're doing it wrong. You have to do it this way. Don't be stupid. You got to do it this way. Other things along those lines.
Mm.
Um, it was off balance because, as I mentioned before, um,
Yeah.
the I love what you said about relationships, and how we attract those. Um, in particular, what it said to me was basically anybody who's like my mom or like my dad. Both my mom and my dad were manipulative of each other, right, and manipulative of us kids. Um,
Mm.
if if we say, you when you go out and you date your mom or your dad, right? You're wanting to look for those kind of people. I was like, no, no, I don't. I don't want to meet, if they're anything like any of them, then no, I don't. And so I actively would seek out
Oh.
people that were opposite of that
Mm.
and were other things. But what I didn't realize was there was another golden rule was, are they actually paying attention to you? And there are certain things that got to me that I started understanding was that yes, they would dig for stuff that I was embarrassed on. They would dig for stuff that would do that kind of thing because that was how they would cut me down,
Yeah.
right?
Yep. Yep. Look for
Um,
those holes.
yeah, yeah, look for the little things. But anything that I was proud of, they would completely forget. It was not something unless they could make something bad out of it, it was something that they'd completely forget.
That is heavy.
And
That is heavy.
right,
Yeah. That's
it it spoke to me that finding, my I don't know if I would call this a hidden rule, but I would say that my dating rule after that, my finding good people rule would be if they actually asked questions of instead of just answering questions. If I go into a friendship or anything like that, and they actually ask me how I felt or how I did or something like that, then that meant that they were actually interested in me,
Mhm.
and that meant that they were actually that they actually had a wanted to get a deeper understanding of me. And narcissists don't don't care that much. They care to manipulate you, but not find out who you are.
Right, right. They don't really listen. They might ask questions to make themselves look like they're paying attention, and we have to watch for that carefully, but they're not really listening. And
Yeah.
the caring follow through on a question is the difference between someone who's narcissistic and someone who is not.
Late.
They're asking about that person and then bringing that up again later, or if they something an interest that you have, sharing that interest with you or helping you to get more of it and helping you, be out in the world away from them, doing your own thing and growing yourself because that's one of the really key pieces with a narcissist. They want to possess you completely.
Yeah.
Often they will tell you that your friends are bad or you don't need these people or, your family is this or that. You should just be with me. I'm the center of the earth, right? That's a really big key to a
Yeah.
narcissist is they don't want you to be out there in the world connecting with other people. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess I would say the only other thing I would add in that is that I got caught up in the narcissism in my family, and getting over that was one of the biggest things that I did,
Mhm.
right? Getting over the fact that other people um, don't have the kind of arguments, kind of, in my family, it was, slamming the door and then saying some kind of cutting comment at the top of my lung, against somebody. Those were the ways that we would impress upon everybody that we were angry or that we felt that we were wronged or other things. And, other people's families don't do that, right? There are families that don't do that kind of thing. They have better relationships. We have better relationships at work and other things. Doesn't have to be that way. And realizing that we don't have to follow those rules, follow the family rules is the biggest you know, revelation that I had was that I don't have to interact with people like this.
Nope.
I can interact with people in a more gentle, more respectful, more inquisitive way
Mhm.
rather than narcissism.
That makes sense. And so the hidden rule I think that people need to be careful of when they've come from abusive families, whether it's narcissism or something else, but it's usually behind abuse. Narcissism just is
Yeah.
behind
Yeah.
abuse,
Yes.
right? Um, eh,
Social abuse.
yeah. So the hidden rule there is to be very careful about the fact that we know how to negotiate those relationships, right? I didn't want to be in a relationship with someone who treated me like dirt. I didn't, and it wasn't always like that, which is a key to narcissism either, right? It's back and forth, it's up and down, it's yes, it's no. That confusing piece. We know how to be in relationship with people like that, and so sometimes we go toward that, right? Instead of at that in that young age when I was with that guy, I didn't know how to be in a relationship with a guy who either wasn't an alcoholic or, an adult who wasn't treating me
Right.
dirt most of the time. So I had no idea. There was no framework for that. So the hidden rule we have to be careful of is that we can be attracted to what we're comfortable with and know how to negotiate. And when we know how to negotiate narcissists, sometimes we get sucked in because of our shy and anxious energy. So we need to be careful, and our listener needs to be careful of that all the time.
Yeah. If you're feeling comfortable yet feeling off balance, there might be something wrong and take a look at it. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
Um, Something I want people to remember
Okay.
is that what protected you gave you skills.
Uh-huh.
And when you understand them, you can put them to use. And those skills build lasting confidence.
Yeah.
I it's particularly in this, you know, you have the skill to understand who is being a narcissist, who is putting you off balance. Realize it and change. You can always change.
Right. Right. So we protected ourselves with the understanding of how to negotiate these relationships, but the skills we developed is how to take care of ourselves because we know if we really, really look, really admit it to ourselves, we know if we're in a relationship where we're being treated properly or not. And we have the skills to identify that and the choice to move out of that if that's the case. If we're in a relationship, we're not being treated correctly, we have the option to not be in that.
I like that.
Yeah,
Well, with that, I'm going to ask, you know, if you felt this was useful, if you felt that you got something out of this, we would encourage you to like and subscribe and to help us build this channel and grow. And we would love to have your comments.
we would.
So, on that, goodbye for now.